Yeah, I moved on from Sonadow. I'm a Mephinite shipper now. So, I finished Sonadow Generations, and I loved everything. The stages, the boss fights, the ambiance, the kissing, everything. Additionally, the lead up to the game was something I don't think I have ever experienced before. Y'all know I'm a huge Sonic fan, but I have never felt this desperate to play a Sonic game in my life. I pre-ordered the Nintendo Switch version, so sadly I couldn't play the game early like most of my friends, and I was going insane. The FOMO was that bad. I was trying to avoid the internet as much as possible because I did not want to get spoiled. I had to occupy my time by playing Words of Wonders. I know, that's really lame. And also the bots from chess.com. Me and Martin played a lot of rounds. That's some 100 elo chess right there. But no matter how many levels I made it through Words of Wonders, or how many times I beat Martin, I couldn't stop thinking about Sonic and Shadow Generations. I wanted to get my hands on that game so bad. You could say, I needed it. I needed Sonadow Generations. To be honest, it's been a while since I've been this enthusiastic over a Sonic game. Usually I'm fairly optimistic, but it never got to the point where I was losing sleep over it or dying on the inside because I didn't have it. The last time I was this excited for a Sonic game was Sonic Forces. And before that, it was Sonic Advance 3 from when I was 8 years old. But finally, Friday, October 25th arrived, and I scheduled my order to be picked up at my local Best Buy. I got in my car, and on the way, people were driving crazy on I-10, as they always do, and at that point, it was my mission to return home in one piece with the game in hand. Finally, Sonadow Generations was all mine, and I got to experience it. I finished the game, and now I need an outlet to get my thoughts out, so here I am. I can finally tell the tale. You know, it's so surreal because it simultaneously feels like yesterday, but also an eternity from when we got the first announcement. And at long last, we're finally here. The game is doing amazing with both sales and reviews. 1 million units were already sold within the first day. I could not be happier for Sonic Team. They absolutely deserve all the praise and success, and I'm very excited to see what's next for the Sonic franchise. Before I dive any deeper, I'd like to clarify that this is not a review. I want to set the record straight. I'm not a video game reviewer, I'm a video game enjoyer. I talk about these games because I love them, not so much for the sake of reviewing it. I don't cover games that I don't like, and even if I did, it would feel wrong of me to tell you not to play it or make people feel bad for liking it. Also, I am biased as hell, especially for Sonic, and I feel like my thoughts and opinions don't really fit in with the majority of Sonic YouTube. I unapologetically love Sonic Forces. I've enjoyed poorly received games like Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06. I think the Sonic Advance trilogy is basically perfect, and you know what? I think Sonic Adventure is a much better experience than Mario 64. These are all 10 out of 10s for me. This is peak Sonic. So yeah, you probably shouldn't refer to me as like a Sonic YouTube reviewer. So I'm not going to talk about every stage or cutscene, and I'm not going to really cover much from Sonic Generations aside from the story. I'm really here to talk about the things that resonated with me and what I'd like to see from future Sonic games. But even though I'm not going to do a full deep dive on this game, I do feel the need to issue a spoiler warning, so please click away if you don't want to get spoiled. You have been warned, so you can't get mad at me. Alright. First of all, hats off to the marketing team. This has to be the best marketing I have ever seen for any video game in years. It's up there with Paper Mario the Origami King. Like, oh my god. The trailers and promo photos were immaculate. The Sonadow pandering was beautiful. We got the joyfully Sonadow dialogue, Sonadow Chow manga, Sonadow keychains, Sonadow plushies holding hands, Bahama Bucks, and pancakes. It was fantastic. So amazing that I just feel like 2024 is one of the best years I've ever lived because of all this hype. But my only gripe with the marketing is that I think they could have kept some things a secret. It feels like nearly everything from a gameplay perspective was revealed in the trailers and promos. At some point, every shadow stage was featured in a trailer. Every boss was featured in a trailer, with the exception of Devil Doom. So, in my first time playing, most of the things that genuinely surprised me were things that happened in the hub world. Like running into Big the Cat of all characters, as well as Orbot and Cubot. But by the end of the game, I realized that I basically knew all of the stages beforehand because it was already shown in the promos. And, you know, I don't have a background in marketing, but I feel like it's common rule that you're not supposed to reveal everything in the trailers, because otherwise people are going to think the game is bigger than it actually is. People are going to naturally believe that there might be a lot more, and they might be disappointed when they learn that there isn't more, and the promos basically revealed everything. I will say, I think it was a genius decision to reveal Mephiles in one of the trailers. So many people were excited to see him back, and knowing the journey you have to go through to get to his boss gate, it makes sense that they would show him in a trailer because the game itself makes it obvious that you're going to fight Mephiles. But maybe they could have kept Chaos Island and Sunset Heights a surprise. Maybe they could have kept Metal Overlord a surprise too. I think the hype would still be there, and maybe fans would have been genuinely impressed to learn that the Time Eater can pull levels from the future. The promos also made me expect more Sonic and Shadow interactions, and also a Sonic boss fight, but we only got one cutscene, which I enjoyed a lot. I guess I thought they'd interact more, especially with this poster right here. Like, oh my god, look at these two dignified kings walking. I mean, you'd think they'd be partnering with each other, right? But I'm not gonna get too hung up on it. After all, it does make sense. Both are busy saving the world and time-space continuum, so naturally they don't have the luxury to chit-chat. But did I want them to talk more? Obviously yes. Like many Sonadow fans, I was extremely curious to know what Sonic's reaction would be of Shadow's morph form. Based on his Japanese portrayal, I headcanon that Sonic sincerely thinks Shadow is really cool. Like, all of Sonic's friends may think that he's the coolest, but he feels that Shadow is the coolest and has genuine admiration for him. And you even get a glimpse of that in their interaction. I can't get over how happy he is to see Shadow. That's so sweet. Despite my one complaint with the marketing, it is clear that Sonic Team went above and beyond a typical remake, and they are setting a new standard. Dare I say, they're competing, maybe even surpassing, the likes of Nintendo. Sonadow Generations feels like a brand new experience, and you can't really say that about a lot of remakes. One huge difference between the gameplay of Sonic and Shadow Generations is Shadow's ability to use Chaos Control, and the way this feature was implemented was absolutely brilliant. When I was trying to S-rank the challenges and stages, that is when I realized that Chaos Control is not just meant for situational moments. That's when I learned you should use Chaos Control as much as you can to help you get the S rank or even help you get collectibles under a time limit. Chaos Control is your best friend. I love this feature. This is how Shadow lives? I am so jealous. Chaos control would make my life so much easier. You know what? The more I think about it, I realize that I've never really been jealous over a Sonic character's special ability. Well, maybe Sonic, because he can practically go anywhere he wants in the world in minimal time. But I can't say I've ever been jealous of Silver's psychokinesis, or Infinite's Phantom Ruby powers, or even Mephilus's Death Ray. But Chaos Control? I wish I had that in my life. I can't emphasize enough how awesome it feels using Chaos Control in this game. Compare this back to Shadow 05. Chaos Control was useful to an extent. It was primarily useful when you were doing a neutral run. But you could make the argument that a full blue meter gave you unlimited ammo and invincibility for a brief period of time. But that's if you decide not to use Chaos Control. But here, you pause time for a few seconds and are able to maneuver your way through tricky platforming or just breeze through sections without adding to your time. I don't know if it's because of the black and white coloring, or the slowed down music, or everything completely stopping, or a combination of all those things, but every time I use Chaos Control, I feel like I have clarity and I focus a lot better. This feature has to be brought back if Shadow gets more gameplay in future Sonic games. It's just that incredible. And of course, this Sonadow Generations video would not be complete if we didn't talk about Shadow's new, super freaky, awesome Doom powers. I really admire when Sonic Team shows off the freaky side of the Sonic franchise. Imagine if this came out in 2008. Ugh, Morph Shadow would have been crucified along with Werehog Sonic. Can I just say, Sonic Team has always been ahead of their time, and thank God they're finally being recognized for it. All those men who wrote those mean, also really insensitive reviews back then, they were too afraid. They were too caught up in their fragile masculinity to really understand, to truly appreciate the artistic vision of Sega. The girls, the gays, and the theys, we get it. We're here. We've been here, and we stan. So, obviously, the aesthetic is amazing, absolutely perfect. The controls, on the other hand, specifically for Doomsurf and Morph, seem to be a little divisive amongst the fandom, at least from what I've seen. And I get it, Morph in particular was tricky for me to get the hang of, and it can be frustrating when you're learning how to maneuver to higher areas. But I think it just takes practice. It took me some time to get used to Doom Morph, but I got the hang of it and have at least been able to complete stage and hub world challenges. And I can't say this enough, I love Doom Morph's design, and I love all the Sonadow fan art that came out after the Morph reveal. Doomsurf reminds me of the Stingray surfing levels from Super Mario Galaxy, so I was already used to the surfing controls. And of course, there's the beautiful and magnificent Doom Wing form. And Shadow just looks like an angel. Like Morph, it also took me a little bit of time to get used to the controls, but that's what the hub world is for, to really practice and get a feel for the controls. And I absolutely love Doom Wing. I love flying around in this form. The other piece that was significantly different from Sonic Generations was the White Space hub world. It very much operates like Frontiers, with some pretty huge improvements in my opinion. Not going to lie, at first I was indifferent to the White Space hub world, and I was more focused on playing the stages and challenges. But the more I explored for machine parts and chests, the more I appreciated it. The hub world becomes especially fun when Shadow gets his Doom Wings. It's really cool to just fly around and explore higher areas. I was shocked to learn that there are chests at the very top of the castle. I didn't even think you could reach that high. I also love that the hub world theme incorporates a leitmotif of All Hail Shadow. And when Black Doom takes over, I especially love that you hear his boss theme from Shadow 05. I've said this before in another video, but I love Black Doom's boss theme. It sounds so graceful and majestic. With how detailed this hub world is in comparison to Sonic's, it really makes me appreciate the remake even more. Like I said, Sonic Team basically made a brand new game within their game. A brand new experience. And their hard work really shows. Sonadow Generations has a total of 6 stages with 2 acts per stage. The challenge gates from Sonic Generations are also carried over to Shadow's campaign, and each act in normal mode has 2 challenges. Each act also has 1 hard mode challenge in the Doom Moon version. The only complaint I have is that I want more stages. They are so good. Interestingly, there are no Shadow 05 specific stages in Sonadow Generations. While it might be disappointing to Shadow 05 enthusiasts, I think this decision made sense. A lot of Shadow 05 stages were based on levels from Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and even Sonic Battle. Honestly, the first stage, Space Colony Arc, might as well have been a combination of Space Gadget, the Arc, Final Chase, etc. Also, Shadow 05 has a fair share of city stages, and considering that 2 of the 6 are city levels, adding Wistopolis or Lethal Highway could make the experience feel a little repetitive, especially considering that Sonic Generations already had 4 city-type stages. On top of that, we also have those brief Black Doom segments where Shadow is traveling through a glitchy Cyber City level, which I thought were really cool. They only appear in Act 1 of Space Colony Arc, Rail Canyon, and Sunset Heights, but I thought it was a neat way to remix level design from iconic Sonic City levels, but also have Shadow and Black Doom interact with each other more, and showcase the power that Black Doom has and how he's able to manipulate the environment into something completely different. But back to the level selection. If they chose Wistopolis, I'm sure we would not hear the end of, "Oh, I'm playing Wistopolis for the 11th time, haha." So in that sense, I'm kind of glad that Wistopolis wasn't there, even though I like the stage and I like Shadow 05 as a whole. But there are certain portions in the Black Doom sections that have Wistopolis influences, which I thought was pretty neat to see. If they had to pick a stage from Shadow 05, I think one of the Comet levels would have been the best choice. So either the Black Comet, Final Haunt, or the Last Way. Gun Fortress might have also been interesting as well. That could flirt with the idea of multiple timelines existing, the potential of a timeline where Shadow was successfully brainwashed by Black Doom, and our Shadow is experiencing a path where he could have been worse off. But as an alternative, Sonic Team pulled what I think is a power move and chose a level from Sonic Forces instead. I think Sonic Team made the best decision with having Sunset Heights as a stage. With all that happened with Sonic Forces, Sunset Heights needed to be there, and I am so happy to see that level be given justice. Sunset Heights is a phenomenal stage and is one of my favorites in Sonadow Generations. Sonic Team is once again reclaiming the narrative, reclaiming their games and showing the world that they have and have had really great ideas. This is really special and symbolic for me because I remember Sonic YouTube content being extremely pessimistic during and after the release of Forces, and the narrative during that time was how Sonic had fallen off again and the franchise was over and it's never coming back from this failure. But look where they are now. Look where they are now. This is why you don't give in to the negativity. Again, they could not have picked a better stage to represent forces than Sunset Heights. Sunset Heights was a huge part of the promotion and the first modern Sonic stage Sega showed off to fans. The very first promotional trailer showed Sunset Heights with the massive Death Egg robots, and it looked so thrilling and intriguing. But sadly, they didn't do much with the Death Egg robots in the levels or the story. I think it's fantastic that they were able to revisit this concept, and these massive war machines have more of a prominent role in the levels and challenges. They are actually hazards you have to avoid. I love the animation sequence of Shadow trying to avoid the Death Egg robots and then falling towards the sewer area of the stage. He genuinely looks caught off guard by the destruction. Sonadow Generations' version of Sunset Heights also incorporated elements of other Sonic Forces levels such as Ghost Town, Park Avenue, and even Episode Shadow. There were also certain portions of the stage that felt new. A new area of Sunset Heights that we didn't get to see in Forces. For example, Shadow spends a lot of time underground in the sewer area, and that's a section that you breeze through in Forces. I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this portion teased in the trailer, I genuinely thought this was Dusty Desert from Sonic 06. I also think it's really fitting that Shadow is away from most of the action and is not seen by the Resistance. Instead, Shadow is basically an observer and completely unfamiliar with the terrain. He can see something firing at one of the Death Egg robots, but doesn't have much context to how all of this happened and came to be. This might not be a big deal for most, but in Act 2, I love that it's raining. It never rained in Sonic Forces. I mean, it doesn't rain in most Sonic games, but there's just something really neat about it raining in Sunset Heights. I love how it looks gray and gloomy. To me, it represents just another day of the war that Shadow is running through. Who knows at what point in time of the war this is? Sonic could still be in Death Egg Prison at this point. I think Sunset Heights is the only Shadow stage that has rain, and I want to believe that it's symbolic. They say that rain symbolizes renewal and transformation, and I feel like that is what Sunset Heights went through for all of its levels and challenges. I also want to highlight the Black Doom section. I love that you see hints of Metropolis City's level design from Forces. At one point, it looks like Shadow is running through null space. I thought that was a pretty cool callback. Truly a wonderful stage, one of my favorites in the Sonadow Generations experience. I'm just really happy to see Sunset Heights revisited and redeemed, and that it's getting its flowers. Same can especially be said with Kingdom Valley. I don't think there could have been a better level to represent Sonic 06 than Kingdom Valley. It needed to be there. During Sonic 06's release, and the era of harshly critical Sonic YouTube reviews, Kingdom Valley was a level that was widely criticized for many reasons, such as Sonic's Mach Speed section, the key hunting, navigating the level with Silver, and Shadow's hovercraft sections. I understand that those gameplay mechanics soured the experience for many people, but I think it's sad that Kingdom Valley would end up being despised for it, and that the negativity overshadowed the well-deserved praise for its beautiful graphics and scenery. Kingdom Valley seemed really special to Sonic Team. Like Sunset Heights, this level was showcased in a lot of trailers and promos. On the game's cover, Sonic is running through Kingdom Valley. Think of it this way. What New Donk City was in Mario Odyssey is what Kingdom Valley was supposed to be for Sonic 06. It was supposed to be that iconic level that people would be talking about for years to come. Personally, I thought it was one of the best levels when I finished Sonic 06. In my opinion, Kingdom Valley already deserved its flowers, but I'm just as excited to say that they did this level justice. In my opinion, it is the best stage in the Sonadow Generations experience. That's right, not just Shadow, but the entire collection as a whole. Act 1 really brings you back to Sonic 06. and the level design and scenery is absolutely sublime. The Doom Surf portions are definitely reminiscent of Shadow's hovercraft sections, but there are no collapsing towers here, and I love that there are quite a few hidden routes in these areas. It's a fast-paced level, but there's so much to explore and enjoy about Kingdom Valley Act 1. And I am just as happy that they kept the water wall portion from Sonic's level, and they saved it as the best for last. Not to be dramatic, but it is so angelically beautiful. And I enjoyed this section a lot more than I did with Sonic 06 because sadly I was too stressed over surviving the Mach Speed section to truly admire the level. I like that Act 2 focuses more on the castle portion of Kingdom Valley. Like Sunset Heights, there are certain parts of the stage that feel completely new. At some point in Act 2, Shadow runs through the interior of one of the castles, and I don't think that's something we've ever seen in Sonic 06. Additionally, this area in particular looks like the outside of where Shadow and Rouge meet Mephiles for the first time. The music that plays when you stand next to the stage is just sublime, phenomenal, amazing. It makes me feel like I am in the presence of something greater, something majestic. I also love the Act 2 music as well. The quick pace and instruments of this track reminds me a lot of Sonic Advance 3. Specifically Sunset Hill and Ocean Bass, which I think makes this track so refreshing to listen to. Kingdom Valley Act 2 is definitely one of my favorite tracks in Shadow Gen. Like Sonic Advance 3's soundtrack, Kingdom Valley Act 2 is very brassy and sounds confident and powerful. It makes really good use of the synths and percussion. I know technically Kingdom Valley is Stage 3 and Sunset Heights is Stage 4, but I ended up playing Sunset Heights before Kingdom Valley, and the level order may not matter to most people, but I think playing the stages in that order provides a better experience. You're coming from the Bio-Lizard fight and then going straight to the future. Shadow reunites with Maria and Professor Gerald a lot sooner, and then you get to experience the best level in the game. So I like doing it in that order. I don't have much to say about Chaos Island, but one thing I really appreciated about this stage is how you subtly see and feel Sonic and Shadow's connection with each other. Okay, hear me out. Veteran Sonadow fans have analyzed for many years about this link Sonic and Shadow share throughout various levels. Even when they are not interacting with each other, somehow their influences seep into the areas they run through. For example, at some point in Frontiers, Sonic would run through a cyberspace version of Shadow's levels, and I believe it was Sage who speculated that the cyber levels are a reflection of Sonic's memories. Of course, Shadow runs through Chaos Island himself, and that may explain why his levels show up in cyberspace. But this is just one piece of the Sonadow pie. There are instances where Sonic's music plays during Shadow's levels. A remix of Final Rush plays during the Arc stage in Shadow 05 and in Sonadow Generations. Sonic is running through Radical Highway in Sonic Generations DS. He also fights the Biolizard. I know Generations DS isn't the canon version, but it's just another example of the connection and influence they share even when they're apart. Going back to Kingdom Valley, Shadow runs through the water wall section that was in Sonic's level. Going back to Chaos Island, about halfway through Act 1, Shadow is riding on a rail and he witnesses a volcano explosion. The same one that Sonic triggered right before fighting the Knight. He also passes by the Zap symbol in both acts, and at that point, Sonic helps the Cocos find closure in Chaos Island. Overall, it's a really great level. It took me a while to S-rank both acts, but I did it eventually. Once I got a better handle with Morph, I enjoyed running through Chaos Island a lot more. Can I just say, the music for both acts are really good, but I love the white space theme for this stage. It's definitely the most mysterious sounding of all the hub space themes. Something about it makes me think of Castle Black from Super Paper Mario. I think it's the acoustic strings and piano that gives it that vibe. It complements the track really well, might I add. I feel like I could just sit there and listen to Chaos Island's white space theme for hours. Having Radical Highway as the last stage honestly felt like such a power move. We are taken back to the very beginning. The very first stage you play as Shadow in his debut game, Sonic Adventure 2. And personally, Radical Highway was not my first choice on what stages I felt should have been in Shadow Generations, but I was really impressed with both acts, and I appreciate that it's not your typical Radical Highway remake. I really enjoy the trippy visuals and the effect Black Doom has on this level, especially in Act 2. I also love that there are elements of Westopolis and even Crisis City in both Acts 1 and 2. With all that said, I struggled a lot with this stage. I haven't S-ranked it yet, but I think it's a great closer, and the Devil Doom boss fight was absolutely insane. I love that it's a boss fight and a stage at the same time. Phenomenal. A wonderful closer to Shadow Generations. Speaking of the bosses, I am pleasantly surprised to say that I really liked the Biolizard boss fight. I thought it was fun, and I liked the new elements that were added. Not that I thought the Adventure 2 boss fight was bad, but I guess at the time, I thought the Biolizard was an obvious, safe choice, and just was expecting it to be like the Adventure 2 fight. But I was very stunned by the presentation. I don't have much to say other than he looks so beautiful when he sprouts his wings. He's like a majestic swan. I love him, I adore him, and I want to hold him like a little baby. Speaking of babies, have you seen Baby Biolizard? He's so cute. Metal Overlord looked really good too, and similar to Perfect Chaos, I liked that it was both a boss fight and a stage level in a way. I think it incorporates Doomsurf pretty well, but you know, it was still pretty challenging the first time and took me a little while to figure it out. I'm still trying to S-rank this boss, but I know it's not impossible, you just have to be perfect. Metal's dialogue was a bit exaggerated. It really put emphasis on him like, "You're a fake hedgehog," or whatever. But hey, it was cool to see him talk again and be brought back. Not related to the boss fight, but one thing I didn't like was Omega spoilering the boss before you got the chance to play. He didn't do that for the other bosses, so I wonder why they added that particular dialogue here. I guess the fight is kind of tricky, but Neo Metal does say that he copied Shadow's Chaos Control, so I don't really see the point. I wish Metal Overlord wasn't revealed in the trailers, because I think that would have been huge for people reacting to it the first time. And of course, we have a boss fight with the Shadow Queen. No, not that Shadow Queen. Mephiles the Dark. The journey to get to the third boss gate was so good. Well, the intended journey. You could fall down this well and find him that way, but I discovered this section of the map by traveling through the gated entrance as Morph Shadow. You navigate down this mysterious cave, and all of a sudden, the music changes, and you hear this eerily familiar tune. It's as if there is a sinister presence waiting for you to arrive. So you continue to scale up the area, and then you see the boss gate. They may not explicitly announce it, but you already know who you're going to face. Even if you avoided watching all of the trailers, I feel like you know in your gut that Mephiles is waiting for Shadow. Shadow is brought back to Dusty Desert, but is completely unfamiliar with the area or the mysterious device that lies in front of him. But as he accidentally triggers the Scepter of Darkness, we see one of the most cinematic, badass intro sequences for any Sonic boss ever.
What is this? A seal of some sort?
It breaks my heart that I will never be able to react to this moment for the first time ever again. Watching Mephiles peek his head out behind Shadow for the first time brought me this love-struck excitement that I can't really put into words. But it was like, at that moment, I fell madly, deeply in love. I'm in love with a fictional, evil time demon. Don't tell my boyfriend. Mephiles is not playing around. Right off the bat, he sneaks up behind Shadow and uses the same attack from when he murdered Sonic, and Shadow barely dodges it in time. I like the expression you see on Shadow's face when he senses Mephiles before he attacks. He doesn't even have time to process all that occurred, but he knows that he has to be prepared to battle a powerful foe. Watching this scene never gets old for me. Honestly, it might just be the highlight of Shadow Generations for me. I love him. I love Mephiles. He's so hot. Look, I take back what I said in my Infinite video. Mephiles is absolutely gorgeous. I am so sorry for not truly acknowledging his beauty. Okay, but in my defense, the Sonic 06 models are not the prettiest of Sonic models, so people who genuinely ship Mephiles and Infinite together, I understand now. I have seen the light, and it's ruby colored. I need Mephiles and Infinite to meet. It would be a red wine supernova. They have such a power couple aesthetic. I can picture them bonding together. They were both unfairly punished for being 365 party girls. Is that a crime? What's so wrong with that? Sorry, back on topic. I liked that the battle combined aspects from both of the Mephiles boss fights in Sonic 06, but also how it incorporated Morph into the fight. I'm not going to lie, it was a little tricky to figure out the first time I played, but it would end up being my favorite boss in Shadow Generations. And I played it so many times that I ended up S-ranking it because I just love Mephiles that much, you know? Whatever I could do to see my fictional crush. It was also fascinating to learn that Mephiles is stuck in limbo, and he's aware that life has moved on without him, and defeating Shadow was his only shot at fully existing again. I just want to mention that the dialogue for the Japanese version gets a little freaky. At one point, Mephiles says, "I'll spare your life if you sit there begging for it." And Shadow responds with, "You'd think I'd do that. I might be a bottom, but I'm not that kind of bottom." Kudos to the animators and model designers. Mephiles might not have a mouth, but he is super expressive. The look of sheer shock and confusion on his mouthless face before Shadow lands the final blow is immaculate. He looks so good. I can't wait to make edits of him. And Infinite. Time to talk about a character that did not show up in the game, but quite a few people were hoping that he would. And that, of course, is none other than the Gun Commander. I'm just kidding, but it was cool to see him in Dark Beginnings. Anyway, as I was playing the Sunset Heights levels and challenges, I couldn't help but wonder, where is Infinite? What is he doing at this point in time? Is he out being a 365 party girl? Is he cheating on his sugar daddy with some guy in prison? Is he going full Spring Breakers for the sake of the plot? Okay, so technically, Infinite is in the game. Right here in the Sonic Forces promotional art. You see that? There he is. Well, as an Infinite fan and fellow member of the Brat community, I am disappointed and relieved at the same time. I'm more relieved than disappointed. As much as I would have loved to see him, I think it was for the best that he wasn't in the game. One, because it would contradict episode Shadow and Forces. I mean, I'm sure they could have twisted some things to make it work, but I think it was smart of Sonic Team not to potentially screw up the future stories. And two, given his poorly executed debut, I am rooting for Infinite to have the best comeback. Again, as much as I loved and adored the Mephiles intro scene, it was just one little cutscene, one boss fight, and he wasn't meant to be the focus of the story. His boss fight was definitely effective, and hopefully he can have a real comeback of his own, but I feel that wouldn't work as well with Infinite due to the fact that he didn't have as much screen time as Mephiles did in his own game. And while I think Infinite did carry Force's story in terms of, dialogue, he didn't leave as much of an impact as Mephiles did, and his backstory and ending left a lot to be desired. But hey, either way, even if Sega decided to include him as a DLC boss in the future, I'm confident that they can make it work somehow. Time and time again, they have clearly demonstrated that they could bring any character back, and make it work if they wanted to. I talked about this in a previous video, but I genuinely believe Black Doom returning opens the door for Infinite to have a comeback of his own. I say this because during the 2000s, Black Doom at that time was not a well-received character. Even in the 2010s, Sonic YouTube reviewers covered him pretty negatively, and the opinion at that time was that he was ineffective at being a villain and was kind of stupid and lame. I don't agree with that, but that was the consensus at the time. Hey, I mean, people were saying that Mephiles sucked as a villain too, so from my observation, I don't think Infinite is as widely hated as Black Doom was back in the day. I mean, he barely won a poll against the beloved Cream the Rabbit, so Sonic Team knows that people do like him. The last thing I want to cover is the story and dialogue for both Sonic and Sonadow Generations. Before the game's release, it was rumored that there would be some dialogue changes to the original Sonic Generations. But to my surprise, a lot of revisions were made to the script, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. To be honest, I didn't think the dialogue from the original Generations was bad, aside from a couple of moments. So my overall thoughts are that a few of the changes were an improvement, but most of the changes I was pretty indifferent towards and wondered why they felt the need to fix the dialogue to begin with. However, there was one cutscene where the dialogue was completely changed, and I did not like that. And that was everyone cheering on the Sonics, and now it's like, oh, you faced better than this, don't be lame. I mean, come on. The original pep talk was cute, okay? What was wrong with it? I don't understand. The biggest tragedy? Okay, yes, I know I'm being dramatic, but I was bummed that Shadow doesn't say, "You got this, Sonic." Instead, it's "on your feet." Before playing Sonadow Generations, I was excited that we were going to get context for Shadow's little pep talk. "You got this, Sonic" actually had meaning behind it. But no, they changed it. I know Sonic fans think the 2010s was cringe, but was that line really that bad? It was just a rival supporting his rival boyfriend. What's so wrong about that, huh? On top of that, the dialogue I thought should have been changed was kept. I'm sorry, Rouge calling Sonic Big Blue just doesn't sit right with me. It's worth noting that the Japanese version didn't change any of the dialogue from the original Generations, which makes me feel some type of way about the English rewrite. I'm hoping this isn't the case, but it definitely comes off as Sega West trying to fix the characterization. I noticed this happening in Frontiers as well, particularly with Amy and Tails. Listen, I understand that the fandom is very passionate about characterization, but I think the writing team needs to get out of the mindset of trying to fix the characterization from previous games and just move on. To keep things respectful, I think Ken Pontac and Warren Graff did alright. They wrote some good moments. They also had their share of duds, but whatever. There are some things from the 2000s that didn't age well either. But it happened. It's a part of the franchise's history. Pontac and Graff were brought on for a reason, and I think they at least met the objective they were originally hired for. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, Sonic YouTubers and video game reviewers were adamant about fixing the quote-unquote dark ages of Sonic, and to scale back on the supposedly edgy, dark storytelling. So, as a response, Sega hired Pontac and Graff to make the story simpler, to appease the fans and video game reviewers who thought Sonic had too many annoying friends. And they kept them for nearly a decade because they initially received positive feedback from video game journalists and even Sonic YouTube. And while I didn't love the direction that the 2010s took, I don't think it's fair to completely fault Sonic Team and even Pontac and Graff for adapting the characterization and storytelling to meet reviewer and fan expectations during that time. But now we are seeing Sonic fans who grew up in the 2000s voice their opinions and want Sega to correct the 2010s. With that said, I don't want all of Sega West to be in this perpetual cycle of trying to fix the past for the sake of the fans. I've been on social media long enough to know how fickle the Sonic fandom is. Like, one day Sonic Colors is a great game, and the next day it's considered trash. All of a sudden, everyone hates Sonic Adventure and claim that the game aged poorly. But on the bright side, more people are recognizing that while Shadow 05 and Sonic 06 were flawed, it was not as bad as fans have made it out to be, and has some genuinely good things to enjoy about them. People are realizing that Shadow wasn't this edgy edgelord, and was just suffering through trauma. And hopefully people will realize that Tails was just a kid who was completely heartbroken and traumatized over losing his brother, basically, and had a moment of panic when Chaos was about to attack him. That's why I think it's really important for all of Sega to stick to their guns and trust their instincts with like sensitive topics like that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't accept fan feedback at all, but I do think they should be selective in what kind of feedback they should incorporate into future games and storytelling. They should consider feedback that is constructive and feasible, and would make sense for Sonic. Sega West doesn't have to operate exactly like Sega of Japan, but I do think they could learn to stick their ground and continue to move on when it comes to storytelling. Onto the Shadow part of Generations, I actually had to rewrite this section. As I was 80% through editing this video, I learned that a chunk of the dialogue for Shadow Generations was written by Sonic Team. Before learning this, I was under the impression that Ian Flynn wrote all of the English script, and Sonic Team would provide whatever notes they had for Ian to update. And originally, I was going to share the feedback I had for him and what I would like to see him improve on in the future Sonic games. I decided to remove that piece because it wouldn't be fair to direct all of my criticism towards Ian when Sonic Team was also heavily involved in the writing. To me, it doesn't really matter who wrote what, the feedback I have still applies. But I do want to be cognizant of the fact that both Ian and Sonic Team are already put under a lot of scrutiny, and I want to choose my words carefully. But I will say right off the bat, I enjoyed the story, and I think the dialogue is a huge improvement from Frontiers. The characters actually feel like themselves. But I noticed that quite a bit of dialogue was recycled from past games, and made some interactions feel a little unnatural in my opinion. The main example being Black Doom. His dialogue reiterates things we've already heard from Shadow the Hedgehog. And I don't think he says, "The promised time is nigh upon us," that much in Shadow 05. Sorry, I had to give it a shot. Another example is Mephiles. A huge chunk of his dialogue was pulled directly from Sonic 06. And the thing is, I thought the new lines were really great. "I want to exist" was a really good line, and when Shadow said, "There is no future for you, ever," I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh my god! I thought that was like the best comeback. My point being that it's been almost 20 years since we've last seen Mephiles in a Sonic game, and it would have been nice to have him say other things instead of recycled lines from Sonic 06. Other than that, I love the story, and I'm really happy that Sonic Team had another shot at bringing back all these characters that played a significant role in Shadow's development. Anyway, I just want to remind everyone that these are my opinions. Ian or anyone else at Sega is not obligated to listen to what I have to say, and I can't imagine how hard it must be to get hate on a consistent basis. You're never going to make everyone happy. There's always a Sonic fan complaining about something. I bet there's already a Sonic fan complaining in the comments about this video. Earlier, I mentioned how Sonic Team is reclaiming the narrative, taking back their games and proving to the world that they did have good concepts and ideas, and they can successfully execute their vision. Shadow Generations reclaimed a lot of aspects from Shadow 05, Sonic 06, and even Sonic Forces, games that were widely panned during its release. It's a very risky move, and can be widely scrutinized by critics if done wrong. But it really paid off. Kingdom Valley and Sunset Heights are some of my favorite levels, and not just Shadow Generations, but the entire experience. Mephiles is my favorite boss in the entire game. Before that, Crisis City was one of my favorite levels, and Silver was my favorite boss fight, both being from Sonic 06 and receiving a lot of backlash for years to come. But they were done justice in Generations. Sonic Team reclaiming the narrative is not just limited to Sonic and Shadow Generations. Frontiers reclaimed a lot of aspects from Sonic Adventure and Sonic 06 that received a ton of criticism during the time of their releases. For example, retrying Big the Cat gameplay and having the chance to chill out and fish with him. Big the Cat was despised during the adventure era. It wasn't a main focus of the game, but it was fun to watch Sonic catch all sorts of fish and random things in the lake. And it was also a nice way to just unwind and relax to the music. The Blue Rectangle Challenge is basically a redo of the Red Hoop mission in Sonic 06. I really admire Sonic Team retrying poorly received gameplay mechanics from the past games and proving the naysayers wrong. I also think it's really impressive that they managed to incorporate it in the current game without it being a one-to-one remake or blatant nostalgic callback. I'm really interested in seeing what other avenues they explore. I think Sonadow Generations provided closure in a lot of areas, in both story and gameplay. Personally, I felt like I got closure with Sonic Forces. Because yes, I did enjoy Forces, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as people make it out to be, and I choose to enjoy the good that was there instead of stewing over the bad. But yeah, I won't deny that the game is flawed and left a lot to be desired. And I would wonder what Forces could have been if Sonic Team had the time, energy, and resources to successfully execute their vision. So to see Sunset Heights get a full makeover and get its justice, it satisfied that lingering curiosity I had. Running through Sunset Heights Acts 1 and 2, I felt that this is what Sonic Team wanted Sonic Forces to be. And I am so happy that I got a glimpse of that with this stage. I don't know how else to explain it, other than it feels nice and validating to have that closure of knowing that Sonic Forces would have been an amazing game if everything worked out in their favor. Same with Kingdom Valley, Crisis City, and the Silver and Mephiles boss fights. I know Sonic 06 would have been phenomenal if everything had worked out how it was supposed to be. It would have been Game of the Year. Conceptually, Sonic 06 and Forces were brilliant ideas. And I'm so happy that Sonic Team got the chance to prove themselves right. Same with revisiting Black Doom and proving that he was and always has been a powerful threat. I hope that this will make people look at the past games differently and even appreciate them. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, but Sonic Team truly went above and beyond your typical video game remake. It's weird. I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt renewal. Even though these are stages from past Sonic games, playing them felt like a brand new experience. In a way, Sonic Generations felt like a renewed experience because I hadn't played that game in a long time, even though I liked that game a lot. I think it's really cool that Sonic Team was able to re-explore their past again and not just do it justice or redeem it, but to also celebrate it. I know this is like comparing apples to oranges, but Sonadow Generations is motivating in a sense that remakes, reboots, and sequels can be more than just nostalgic cash grabs. For the past several years, we've been given countless lackluster reboots and sequels that would end up tarnishing the image of those original franchises. And it was that reason why I felt so reluctant towards another Sonic remake, until I saw the first trailer of Sonadow Generations where I was happily proven wrong. Another thing that's great about Sonic Team is how they keep certain things ambiguous enough to where they can explore certain characters and ideas if they wanted to. I can't help but shake the feeling that this might not be the last time we see Mephiles. I really like this idea of Sonic Team reclaiming certain elements from past games, but are still moving forward with new concepts. It's great to see it be so successful with Frontiers and Sonadow Generations. While I jokingly say that I can't wait for Sonic X Shadow Forces Frontiers Remastered, I don't think they need to go back and retry Sonic Forces. I also don't think they need to go back and retry Shadow 05 or Sonic 06. I don't want Sonic Team to be stuck in the past for the sake of the fans. I want them to feel empowered to move forward with new ideas. That doesn't mean I'm against them doing remakes if they genuinely want to do it. rumor has it that they are interested in a Sonic 06 remake, and if they really want to go for it, I support them all the way. I know they will do an amazing job. But we shouldn't punish them for wanting to try something different or taking aspects from other video game franchises and making their version and building upon it. Video game developers take inspiration from other games all the time. Yes, Frontiers was highly inspired by Breath of the Wild, but they were able to do really cool things with that formula. And look at how they were able to further build on it in Shadow Generations and truly make it their own thing. Sonic Team has and will continue to make mistakes. Every video game franchise does at some point. It's just a part of the process. But instead of tearing them down and claiming that it's over for them and they're never coming back from their setback, we should give them grace to learn and grow from it, and try again and come back better, like they always do. Sonic Team made it through the 2000s. They made it through the 2010s, and as long as the Earth is still habitable, they're going to make it through the 2020s. And we are all here to witness it. I hope that they are able to trust their instincts more. They truly have amazing ideas. They just need the time and resources to successfully execute them. Very rarely is a game truly ever perfect, but Sonic and Shadow Generations comes pretty close to that. Takashi Iizuka and every member of Sonic Team should be so proud. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and listening to my silly ramblings. I want to take the time and thank all of the artists who let me feature their brilliant and beautiful work in this video. This hilarious "Would You Still Love Me If I Were a Squid" comic is by Mourning. You can find her on Twitter, YouTube, and Blue Sky. She also has a webcomic called The Monster at My Door, and I highly recommend checking it out. Maya is a brilliant writer and artist, and I think it's amazing that she's made her own original comic. This Morph Sonadow art is by Wowie. I remember when she shared it for the first time a few months back, and I just completely gushed over it. I just love how Sonic is holding Morph. So cute. You can find Wowie on Twitter, Tumblr, Blue Sky, and AO3. This other beautiful Morph Sonadow art is by Mushi, otherwise known as ChaoDayCare. Again, it's just all too cute. I love Morph Sonadow. I also love this piece as well, with Doomwing, Shadow, and Sonic. Thank you for making this, Mushi. You can find her on Twitter under ChaoDayCare, as well as Blue Sky, and on Twitch under the name Mushi Buns. And last, but certainly not least, this beautiful, gorgeous, magnificent Mephinet art is by Miss ViaCurseCasting. Simply brilliant. Absolutely amazing. I have become so obsessed with this ship. I love them so much. Via, you are a visionary. Make sure to check her out on Twitter, Tumblr, and Blue Sky. Also, I just want to take the time to thank you all for the positive support for the Sonadow Iceberg video. I'm just amazed at how big it's become, and as dramatic as this sounds, my life hasn't been the same since. I did want to respond to several comments asking about certain Sonadow passion projects that I mentioned in the Iceberg video, and how some of you actually do want to see that content. So I did some reflecting, and I think we can make some sort of a deal. If you get me to 50,000 subscribers, I will share, either through video or live stream, my Taylor Swift Sonadow lyric PowerPoint. It will be an analysis in the form of a presentation of all the Taylor Swift lyrics that I think are Sonadow coded. If you get me to 100,000 subscribers, I will do the Sonadow relationship analysis. I will cover nearly every Sonic and Shadow interaction, the games, TV shows, movie, Sonic channel stories, the works. It will definitely take me time to make, but I'll do it if you get me to 100,000 subscribers. The good news is we're already 10% there. So spread the good word, spread the gospel, binge my content, fuel the algorithm, in Mephiles' name we pray. Amen. In the meantime, I will keep true to my word and focus on other topics outside of the Sonic franchise. From a writing and mental health perspective, I think it will be really good for me. The next 4 to 5 videos I have planned will not be Sonic related, so I hope you're okay with this being the last Sonic video for a while. Originally, it was going to be a video about Xena from the Deadly Six, and how she did absolutely nothing wrong. I've had the script finished and the voiceovers recorded for a while, but as I was editing, I just wasn't feeling it. I just don't think it's time yet. So it shall sit in the vault until I'm ready. And also, I really wanted to talk about Sonadow Generations and just how spectacular the entire experience was. And I'm just excited and really happy for Sonic Team, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Anyway, if you're not already, subscribe to the channel if you want that juicy Sonadow content. Leave a number 3 in your comment if you're still here, so I know that you watched all the way through. And thank you again for your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I could just picture them really bonding together, talking about their shared interests and all that. So, you're a fan of Lady Gaga and Charlie XCX. Well, you know, I recently became a fan of Chapel Roan. I love Chapel Roan. I have an outfit that's based on what she wore in her Hot to Go music video. Really? What's your favorite song from the rise and fall of a Midwest princess? I think it would have to be Red Wine Supernova. That's my favorite song too. I hope her and Charlie take home some Grammys this year. Me too. I really want Brat to win Album of the Year. It really pushed the boundaries of pop music. Unlike the tortured Poets Department. If Taylor wins anything, I'm going to be so pissed. That album was trash. I know, it's so dull and derivative. I can't believe Shadow actually listens to her. I will admit, I am a bit of a Reputation girly. That album came out the same year as my debut game, Sonic Forces 2017. Interesting. Debut came out in my debut game. Well, that's something. Yeah. Anyway, so how did you meet Shadow?